Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 290, Why We Struggle to Feel Safe in Our Own Minds and Bodies. Well, welcome to a brand new month where we're going to be diving into a theme that I think is at the heart of every meaningful change we try to make, and that is reclaiming our inner safety. Because let's be honest, most of us know what we should be doing to take care of ourselves. We've read the books, we listened to the podcasts, maybe we even tried the meditations. But if deep down we don't feel safe in our bodies, in our relationships, or even in our own thoughts, it's really hard to stay connected to what we truly want and need. When we've lived through trauma, chronic stress, or just environments where our feelings weren't welcome, I think we learn to disconnect, to go into survival mode. And that might look like people-pleasing, overthinking, numbing out, or always being on the go. We end up living outside of ourselves, not even realizing that we're constantly reacting, constantly managing. And all the while, I think we're drifting further from our own truth. So this month, we're going to gently explore what it means to come back home to yourself, to feel safe enough to pause, to breathe, to feel. And I think to choose how you want to show up instead of just surviving. I've got some powerful conversations lined up as well, including episodes that talk about EMDR and coaching, mindfulness, and how we start to reconnect with our bodies and our intuition again. But today we're going to start with something really important, and that is why feeling safe inside ourselves is often the first thing we lose and the last thing we realize we need to get back. So let's break this down. Take Jen, one of my clients, for an instance. On the outside, she looks like she's got it all together. Her calendar is always full. Work meetings, volunteering, helping her friends, managing her house. She says she's just really busy and constantly feels behind. But underneath that busyness is something else. And that is that she can't stand being still. She's told me that whenever she has a quiet moment, all this anxiety creeps in. Her thoughts race, and her old fears or self-doubts start bubbling up. So what she does is she reaches for her phone, dives into another task, or finds someone to help. It looks like productivity, but really it's avoidance. Jen isn't lazy. She's not just overwhelmed either. She's disconnected from herself. Because somewhere along the way, her nervous system learned that staying in motion was a lot safer than sitting with what she feels. And what about Marcus, who prides himself on being the go-to person? He is always available, whether it's covering for a coworker, talking his sister through a breakup at 2 a.m., or saying yes to favors he doesn't really have time for. But what he tells himself is just who he is. He's helpful, he's dependable, and he's selfless. But lately, Marcus has been feeling pretty exhausted, resentful even, and then guilty, of course, for feeling that way. What he doesn't realize is that the constant yes isn't just about kindness, it's about fear. Fear of disappointing people, fear of not being liked, and fear of sitting with his own needs. See, his identity has been so wrapped up in being needed that he's lost track of what he actually wants, or what he even feels. The people-pleasing isn't the problem. It's the disconnection underneath it that is. Or maybe you can identify with Alina. She's the one who holds it all together when things go sideways at work and her family, even her friend group. She jumps into fixer mode. She stays calm, she offers solutions, she picks up all the pieces. And people say she's strong, and she tries to believe them. But when she's alone, Alina feels hollow. Her sleep is terrible. Her stomach is always in knots. She's so busy managing everyone else's emotions that she hasn't touched her own in years. Alina learned early on that staying in control kept her safe, that being the quote-unquote responsible one helped her avoid rejection, chaos, and getting hurt. But now I think it's become a trap. She's not overwhelmed because life is too busy. I think she's overwhelmed because she's emotionally disconnected from herself. And what about Rachel? She doesn't cry much. She doesn't really get angry either. In fact, she often tells me, I'm fine, even when she's not. When something upsetting happens, she jumps straight into logical mode, up in her left brain, figuring it out, minimizing it, or sometimes even brushing it off. But lately, she feels like she's been living in a fog. She forgets what day it is. She zones out during conversations. Hours pass while she scrolls or binges shows she's not even interested in. She tells herself she's just tired or unmotivated. But what's really going on? Well, Rachel has become disconnected from her own emotional life. At some point, feeling things just got too overwhelming. So she learned to shut it all down. Now, even when nothing's wrong, she doesn't feel quite here. She's another person who I don't think is lazy or unmotivated. She's numbed out. And healing for her starts with gently learning to feel again. Let's talk about what it actually means to feel unsafe in your own body or mind, because it's not always obvious. And of course, the more disconnected you are, the less obvious it is. Feeling unsafe doesn't just show up like we think it would, like panic attacks or obvious trauma responses. I think more often it's very subtle. It can look like things like racing thoughts you can't quiet. Your chest is tight, your jaw is clenched, and that's become your normal. Or emotional numbness where you're not even sure what you feel sometimes. It can look like a constant sense of urgency or dread, like something bad is just around the corner. This is what's known as a lack of internal safety. And your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, like we've been talking about here. Fight or flight, freeze or fawn or F it, and it doesn't trust that it's okay to relax or just be. Here are some common signs you might be in this state without even realizing it. The first obvious one is you have trouble relaxing, even when things are calm, even when you should be able to relax. Or stillness makes you so uneasy, so you keep yourself busy or distracted because you feel like you're going to climb out of your own skin. You overthink everything, trying to control for every outcome. Calling yourself a planner, right? You react quickly to emotional triggers, and often later feeling regret or shame. Or you numb out with tasks, caretaking others, social media, or staying productive, like we just talked about. Maybe you struggle to access your own feelings, you don't even know what you need, or even your preferences. It can feel like you're living outside of yourself, always scanning the room, managing other people's things, like their emotions, or fixing problems before they start. That's not you being too sensitive. That's you not feeling safe. And why is that? Well, let's talk about why so many of us end up disconnected from ourselves. It's not because we're weak or avoiding responsibility. It's because at some point, disconnection was adaptive, right? It helped us survive. And if you grew up with trauma, chronic stress, emotional invalidation, or environments where your needs just weren't seen or respected, your body and brain made adjustments to keep you safe. And I think, like we've talked about here before, you then also find yourself in adulthood in environments where that's replicated. Toxic partnership, toxic work environment, family of origin stuff, so you just keep it going. But the big thing is you learned not to feel, not to need, not to speak up. Instead, your nervous system adapted by staying on guard all the time, scanning for danger, avoiding conflict, trying to be what others needed you to be. It's called hypervigilance, and it becomes the background noise of your daily life, and you probably don't even notice it's there until it starts to take a toll, usually on your health, your relationships, and then, of course, your self-trust. Because here's the thing, disconnection works until it doesn't. At first, it feels a hell of a lot safer to tune out, to avoid your anger, your grief, your fear, your unmet needs, because those things were overwhelming when you were younger. Maybe no one helped you hold them. Maybe you learned those feelings weren't allowed, so your body had to store them away, and your mind had to build walls around them to be safe. But here's the thing, those emotions don't disappear. Even though I have clients trying to convince me this every other week, they show up. They show up as anxiety, as burnout, indecision, resentment, and even lots of physical symptoms. The longer we disconnect, the harder it becomes to know what we truly think, feel, or need. I think healing begins when we gently turn towards what's real. Not all at once, but slowly with support, safety, and compassion. Let me paint a picture for you, it might be helpful. So I want you to imagine your mind and body are like a house. And when you were young, there were parts of that house, like whole rooms, where it did not feel safe to go. Maybe the anger room, if anger wasn't allowed. Maybe the sadness room, because your family couldn't tolerate negative emotions, or you were supposed to be happy with everything that was going on, or there wasn't anyone there for you when you were sad. Or maybe the I need something room because your needs were not going to get met. So what did you do? You closed those doors. You turned out the lights. You learned to live mostly in the hallway, or maybe a room that just felt safer, like the do everything right room, or the keep everyone happy room. That was smart. It was adaptive, and you were surviving. But here's the thing. As time went on, you forgot those other rooms even existed. You forgot that parts of you, your voice, your grief, your shame, your wants, your boundaries, were still there waiting. So now, as an adult, you might feel foggy and anxious and reactive, or maybe totally checked out. But not because something's wrong with you. But I think it's because you're still trying to live in just one part of that house. You're still trying to avoid the rooms that once felt way too dangerous to go into. But guess what? Your nervous system doesn't forget. It stays on guard. It says, don't go in there. Remember what happened last time? And so we keep disconnecting, not even realizing that what once kept us safe is now keeping us stuck. But that's how all defensive moves work. They kept you safe growing up, but now they're going to get in the way. And here's the truth. I think disconnection feels safer than facing what's real. And it makes sense. My goodness. I mean, especially if what's real includes like big grief, trauma, deep anger, unmet needs. all the truths we were never allowed to speak. But I think healing begins when we gently open those doors again. Not to be flooded or overwhelmed or re-traumatize ourselves, but just to reclaim those parts of ourselves with some safety, compassion, and lots of support. Because you deserve to live in your whole house again. Okay, so hopefully that helped make sense of maybe why you don't always feel safe in your own body and your own mind, and you kind of run from yourself and don't even realize that you're doing it, that your focus stays out there where seemingly it's safer. So how do we begin to come back to ourselves? Well, I'm just going to touch on a little bit this week. We're going to get more and more into it this month. But it often doesn't start with some big breakthrough and massive life overhaul, although that can be a trigger for people. Sometimes it can start in small, almost invisible moments. The kind of moments I think we normally just rush past. And one thing I try to work with clients on is learning just to stay with yourself for a few moments at a time. And this might sound really simple, but if you've spent years disconnecting to survive, staying present with your own thoughts or emotions can feel incredibly overwhelming and vulnerable. And that's why we start small. Here are a few things you can try just to notice and bring yourself back to yourself. First one is notice your breath. Notice your breath like when you're waiting in line or sitting at a red light. Just observe it. There's no pressure to change anything here. Just observe it. The other thing you can do, and what I have clients do several times throughout the day, is name a feeling. Just check in and say, what am I feeling? Like maybe I feel tense, or I feel okay, or I feel rested, or I feel unsure, or I feel scared, or I feel freaked out, or I feel sad. Naming it connects you back to your internal world. I think it's also helpful to try to imagine why you might be feeling that way, like connect the dots as best you can. That way you validate. Do the no wonder that we've talked about here before. Well, no wonder I'm tired. I didn't sleep well last night. Or no wonder I'm upset. Some big things happened at work today. Or no wonder I feel better at work. That toxic coworker isn't here today. And then pick one moment in your day to practice presence. This might be, just mindfulness, like sipping your coffee slowly instead of gulping it, feeling your feet on the floor, or pausing just for a moment before you answer a text. These aren't just mindfulness tricks, and we're going to get more into mindfulness later this month. They're just, I think, little signals to your nervous system that say, okay, we're safe now and we can be here for a moment. And as you do that, I think as you start to slow down and stay with yourself in small, very manageable ways, you're going to shift things slowly but surely, very gently and very subtly, which is better. Because after a while, you're going to start noticing when you're checked out. That moment when you're mindlessly scrolling, or suddenly you realize you've been holding your breath for God knows how long. You catch yourself maybe jumping into someone else's crisis, or maybe saying yes without checking in with yourself to see if you have any business saying yes. But instead of judging it, you just start noticing it without judgment. And that noticing is huge because it creates a tiny pause. Just enough space, I think, to make a different choice next time. And that's why you just want to pay attention and become aware, not to be hard on yourself, but just to notice. Because when you think about it, when we do these things unconsciously, where our brain has automated it and we're working out of our limbic system, we're not thinking about it. We're not in our prefrontal. We're not making choices. And we got to get to that place where we are more mindful and we start making choices. What's really cool or really hard, and frustrating, as my clients say, you also start to catch yourself. You start catching yourself when you're overfunctioning. Maybe you're trying to fix or manage or emotionally rescue everyone else in your life. And maybe for the first time you say, why am I doing this? Like, what am I avoiding by staying so busy with others? These little moments aren't little. I think they're huge because they mark the return of your self-awareness. Not, and I want to be clear here, not the hypervigilant kind where you're always second guessing. Nope, the grounded kind. I think it's the kind that reconnects you to your own thoughts and your own feelings, not just other people's expectations. And then I think something even more powerful can start to happen. You begin to hear your inner voice again. Your voice, the one that says, I'm really not okay with this. Or I'm exhausted, I need some rest. Or, you know what? This doesn't feel right. Or, I actually want more. That voice, I think, has always been there, but it's been drowned out by your fear, by noise, by how old survival patterns that you had to have, but ones that told you it wasn't safe to listen. But as you build more internal safety, I think that voice becomes clearer and more trustworthy. And it will start guiding your decisions. It's going to help you set your limits, and it's going to help you show up a lot more authentically. That's why I created my course, Find Your Voice, because it has all the components, along with this good stuff, to help you find your way back. What's really cool is as you build more internal safety, that voice becomes a lot clearer and a lot more trustworthy, and it starts guiding your decisions. That's what healing starts to look like. Not perfection, not having it all figured out, but becoming someone who I think can stay more present with themselves little by little. And then they trust what they find there. And that's why this month I'm looking forward to talking about like EMDR therapy that can help you untangle some deeper trauma responses that keep you stuck in survival mode. That's important. You can't do all that work by yourself. And then we're going to talk about mindfulness, which gives you the practice of gently coming home to your body over and over again without judgment. And it's not about doing anything perfectly or not at all, right? I think you just have to begin. One breath, one feeling, one honest moment at a time. So I want to finish out with a guided reflection. So wherever you are, just take a moment right here, right now, and just pause. Let your shoulders drop if you can. Try to unclench your jaw. If you can, feel your feet on the floor. If you're walking, listening to this, feel your feet hitting the ground. Now take one slow, deep breath in and gently exhale. Now ask yourself, without judgment, where have I been checked out today? Was it during a conversation? While I was making a decision? When I reached for my phone and said yes too quickly? Just notice it. No shame, no guilt, just information. Now ask, what might I be feeling underneath that? Maybe it's anxiety or boredom, or maybe it's sadness or fear. If nothing comes up, that's okay. It's the asking that is the important part. That's what matters. You're taking a moment to ask. You're loving yourself enough to do that. And finally, just ask, what do I need right now? Is it rest? Is it reassurance? Is it to set a boundary? or to just breathe a little deeper? Let whatever comes be enough for now, okay? You're practicing and you're building trust with yourself. Remember, just one breath, one pause, one moment, an honest moment at a time. Okay, so how was that? Was it easy? Was it hard? Can you try to do that some more today and see what happens? So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one gentle question. What's one way you may have disconnected from yourself lately? Maybe it was saying yes when you wanted to say no. Maybe it was numbing out with your phone when something hard came up. Maybe it was skipping over your own feelings to take care of someone else's. There's no judgment here. There's just curiosity. And the goal isn't even to fix it right now. It's simply just to notice. Because remember, every time you notice, every time you pause, you take one step closer to yourself. So today we kicked off the month's theme of reclaiming inner safety by unpacking a little bit of why so many of us can live in like this constant state of disconnection. We can have racing thoughts, we can be emotionally numbing to people-pleasing to overfunctioning. And we talked about how early life experiences like trauma and stress and invalidation can teach us that it's not safe to feel, it's not safe to need or to be fully present in the moment. And while these patterns of self-protection may have once helped us survive, oftentimes they do. But now they're keeping us from living a more grounded, authentic life. We talked about how this month we're going to focus on the disconnection that hides behind our busyness or anxiety or over-responsibility, and how becoming more present is the answer. We're going to talk about practices like EMDR and how that can be used in coaching, and some wonderful mindfulness stuff that I think can really support this healing process. By doing a gentle returning back to ourselves without shame or overwhelm. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you want to work through this with more guidance and support, check the show notes because the link is there for my Find Your Voice program. There's also other options there for other courses and the option for some one-on-one work with me. All right, so I hope you take time this week, take time for yourself, and just notice with love, with curiosity, and compassion. All right, pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.